So Lisa.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, namaste. So I just want to share my experience, hearing your words. There is no other there, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
that's what you told me. It's not my experience. Even though I experienced previously, there is only oneness.
Yeah.
There is no difference between this body and the air and the chair and the picture of whomever on the wall. This is everything that is me.
Yeah.
Now it's not my experience. My experience is now I am separate from here,
Yeah.
from here. And even I hear that words, everything is same, and I experience that. Does not move, does not change anything.
Yeah.
Does not change anything. And I think it will, this is my feeling, it will go like this, be like in the prison till it's not more.
Till it's not what?
Till it's not more, till it's finished by itself.
Yeah.
Because I did not make this experience previously,
Yeah.
where I was in oneness.
Yeah.
And I do not do it now.
Yeah.
It's as it is.
Yeah, I totally agree. It happens when it happens.
Yeah,
And it's nothing to do with you.
yeah, nothing to do with me.
The you is an experience and absolutely nothing to do with you. The problem is with saying those words, and I love saying those words.
Yeah.
Like, to me it's really beautiful,
Yes.
is that if somebody takes those words personally,
Yeah.
then they can easily go into hopelessness, and that's not what that means.
Yes.
So they can take it personally and they can say, there is nothing I can do to get out of suffering, I'm stuck in suffering. And that's not what that actually means.
Yes.
It's just that the mind always likes to own everything.
Yes. 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 And that is what happens,
Yeah.
truly. And I see in the same time the poetry in that what you are telling.
Yeah.
This is only it. That is the
Yeah.
beauty.
Yeah.
And nevertheless,
Yeah.
another thing is also the
Yeah.
personal taking of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is really beautiful because it means that everything is happening beyond you. And the big stress of you is that you've got to create, make or do your life. And you is happening just like the wind is happening and the trees are happening. It just comes with a feeling of being personal.
Yeah.
And even this is beyond you.
Yes. Even that is also beautiful in its own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And nothing to do about anything.
Yeah. If the person's in lots of sufferings, if the person's like really uncomfortable, then there's methods I can recommend to help the person relax. But even that's not the person doing it. That's happening as well. Like you can, just like if you break your leg, you can go to the doctor and somebody can help you. If you're having dysfunctional relationships and you'll keep running against like your headbutting the door or something, there can be like methods to help the personality structure be more balanced and have more harmony in their life. But again, it's God's will as to whether it's heard and whether that your being takes that on and changes its actions. But they aren't the same thing. So if the personality structure now hears that and goes, this is hopeless, I'm never going to make it, that is different to what's being talked about. That is a personality structure thing. And that will be the same as what happens to you in the rest of your life. The personality structure, when it comes across work, it will go, this is hopeless, I can't do it, I'm never going to make it. That is a trained way of thinking that you've been taught from society, your parents, and it's most probably genetic as well. And that's not the same thing. I'm not talking about the same thing. Like you can recondition that dynamic and you'll take that dynamic to all areas of your life. You'll take it to your relationships, you'll take it to your work. It's but the belief is it's you and that belongs to you, I can't make it, and then you start projecting it onto enlightenment. I can't make it, I can't do it. Of course you can't do it because you is being experienced. You is an experience happening. But that doesn't mean that that story is related to the waking up story. It's just so hard for the person to imagine. Like it's like, how can this not be personal? how can this not be talking about me? Because that's how we're trained. We're always trained to think that it's about us.
Of course, you are talking personal to me because 2 months ago I broke my leg. And I went to the village doctor, to orthoped, and he fixed it nicely. And another thing, so I'm therapist myself, and I do a lot of mental emotional work on myself also.
Yeah.
But I try, I do it, but you know, the results are not too good.
I still work on my personal self. I can always be a nicer, better, more integrated person.
Yeah.
The person always wants to arrive. It's like, what? You don't get to a place where you're like the perfect person? We want to arrive somewhere, but it's not you that arrives. You never become enlightened. You never become enlightened. You can't, because you don't exist. You is a functioning of the body-mind. It's a functioning that helps you survive. It helps you survive in society. It helps you say, I have got 10 fish to sell that I caught today. Would you like to buy 10 fish from me? Or, I'm going to the shop to get a cappuccino. Would you like a cappuccino? It's a functioning that we have in society. That's not you. It's a functioning that you take on in order to survive in our society that has this complicated thinking. Who is you? Who you are is what's always here. That person that says, I have 10 fish to sell, is always changing and moving dependent on who you're with, dependent the environment you're in, and dependent the emotions you're having. That is something that's changing. What becomes suffering is when you take that on board and believe that's you. What you are is this. And this is still and ever present. And you can put it into other teachings. I don't mind what teachings we put it in. So the first time I heard this was in Buddhism. And they used to say, you've got to be in the moment. And that's the same thing, really. It's just said differently. It's just that it's not really you that's got to be in the moment because you don't exist and you can't be in the moment. But what it's pointing to is that this moment is everything. This moment is the truth, and you know it. Like there's this lightness that comes when it's talked about. Like it makes the heart twinkle. You know this. You know this so deeply that you aren't the personality structure that plays out. The personality structure is a functioning, and that doesn't even need to disappear. You don't need to be the perfect personality structure for this to happen. You don't need to be unconditioned or get rid of all your conditioning. That's a total illusion. It'll be like if you try to make yourself the perfect person, it'll be like trying to have the perfect life. It's an endless struggle that you'll have. There's something beyond that. However, it normally tends to be that you become more balanced, that you're not suffering as much. You become more grounded. Like you're not going off into time. If you're going off into time a lot because you're really uncomfortable, then there tends to be a lot of mental activity and a lot of physical discomfort, and then hearing that this is the freedom is too uncomfortable. You can't, you're sitting here and your body hurts and your emotions hurt and your thoughts hurt, and then hearing this is it, this is wonderful, this is love, this is everything you ever looked for. You're like, I don't think so. But. So it often requires a certain amount of relaxing the person, of working on the person, so it can be heard, but it's not the person that wakes up. And I feel like this is a great confusion that happens, and I also can give that confusion because I talk about the personal self. But I feel like that's what I have to do, is talk about both places. Like, so often you get into this, like when I got into Buddhism and when I got into this subject at first, I was always under the belief that I had to improve. It was like I had all these precepts to follow, like lots. When you become a Buddhist, there's lots of precepts that you have to follow. I had to not drink alcohol, not do any intoxicants. I've forgotten them actually, that's the only ones I can remember. No, it's a lot more.
Don't steal.
Oh yeah, don't kill, don't
sexual
steal.
misconduct.
Yeah, on we go. And then the more and more you progress, yeah, you're right. More and more.
Don't have any fun.
Yeah, the more you progress, the longer the list becomes. And you're like, every time you go to act, you're like, just 1 second. Okay, I can do this. And it's not, and obviously what they're trying to point to is just like relaxing and becoming a more balanced person, because if you're stealing and lying and cheating, you're obviously going to be in a lot of mental hell. And so it's just relaxing that person. And if you're constantly drinking alcohol and drugs, you're going to be uncomfortable. But it's hard to distinguish, because in the beginning you can't imagine that everything's not about you, because what's being talked about is beyond the imagination. And so when there's not that taste or that recognition, the mind can't find something to reference it to. It's like, it must be about me. Like, I can't think about this. You can't think about this. This is beyond thinking. This is before thinking. So mind's